And welcome to another episode of the Dynasty Trades HQ podcast. My name is Michael Sipes, and you can find me on Twitter at FFBlitz. And we're all back together tonight, thank God. And I'm here with my partners, Jeremy Broen.
Hey, when I'm not playing my guitar or fly fishing, you can find me on Twitter at Dynasty Madman.
Really? Fly fishing? And Shane Manila.
Love it.
No, it's nice of you guys to join me this week.
How was last week?
Oh,
It
yeah.
was fun. Look, we got a couple patrons on. Troy Olson and Kyle Senra.
Love those guys.
Yeah. Troy's got a great hosting voice. I'm not saying he's better than Michael in any way. I don't want Michael to get jealous. I'm just saying he has a great host voice. And Kyle is just, I love Kyle. We've been on his show a few times, the Full Press Fantasy podcast.
Yeah.
Great dudes. Good show. It was good times.
Awesome.
And they stepped in.
Yeah,
with
thank
no
you.
notice. And it was awesome.
No notice. Yeah, exactly. Because I was really sick and I had a bunch of stuff going on with whatever. And Jeremy couldn't make it either. And when you say no notice, it was like on Friday night, Shane's like, hey guys, what if I just ask some of our patrons to do a show? So we're like, okay, yeah, do that. So when you say no notice, you literally just asked some people and you guys jumped right in and did it. And I'm very happy that both of them stepped up to do it. That was really great. And the things that they said about us were really great too. So thanks guys for doing that.
I like when people say
appreciate
nice
it.
things about us. It makes me happy.
Of course you do. It is cool that those guys jumped in. Thanks to them. And our patrons are great. So I'm not surprised Shane was able to find people in a pinch to join him. And
So yeah, I mean, I didn't want to. I'm not gonna do the pitch at the end of the show for patrons, but that tells you how much we think of the patrons that we have. They're smart enough that I'm like, yeah, I got no problem with them coming on the HQ and stepping in. No, not all of them. At least a few of them. I'm like, yeah.
we would have to censor some of them. Yes.
Yeah, a few of them make me seem tame, but yeah, no, it's awesome, and that's just part of why our patron, the crew, is the best in the world, because they're not just intelligent, they're fun, they're ready to step in, and they're always ready to talk some fantasy football.
Yeah, our patrons are great. Everybody's awesome. One of these days, maybe we'll do one of those group chats and then we'll put out some of the information or some of the video out for people to listen to,
If I can figure it out,
Well, that's why
definitely do that.
But that's why I was going to say that because really, we did our Podathon appearance this week, which was really funny. And I wish we were recording it ourselves so that we could do some of the sound bites on the show today, because there was some really funny shit during that Podathon.
Great time. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember most of it. I was pretty drunk.
Were you really?
No,
I didn't think so. You never do that. That's why.
I don't drink. I don't really drink that much. You know that.
No, I know. That's why I thought it was funny.
I portray an image on television for the audience.
However, you will in the next, 3 weeks when we're in Canton, Ohio.
Oh, yeah. When we're in Canton, I'm definitely going to get absolutely hammered. And any of our patrons that are there, I'm going to get a drink with them. And anyone that listens to the show, I'm going to get a drink with them. And then anyone that doesn't listen to the show, I might throw a drink at them.
I have no idea what just happened. Did you hear that, Jeremy? Like his sound was like really, really loud, and then all of a sudden it got really quiet.
Started whispering.
You didn't hear me when I said I'm going to throw a drink at someone if they don't listen to the show. Like, so if I'm sitting at the bar, right? I'm just saying, and I'm taking shots, and I mention, someone's like, oh, where are you from? I'll be like, oh, Dynasty Trades HQ. And if they're like, oh, I've never heard of that shot is going to go right in their eye.
Shane's going to come back after getting his ass kicked in a bar. I won't be there to help you, buddy. I'm sorry.
Won't be the first time.
Yeah. Hey, I can step in and try to help. Yeah, right. That'll help.
What, are you going to tear up his ankles?
Oh my God. Yeah, no, the Patreon, the Podathon thing was a lot of fun. So tonight we have a few things, I guess, on the news. We also have an interesting tweet that Shane sent out this afternoon that got a lot of response. So we were going to talk about that tonight in the show, and we have a couple trades. But before we do all that, let's talk about our sponsor, UnderdogFantasy.com.
UnderdogFantasy.com is great for best ball drafts. Not just best ball, though. They have other drafts going on, like they have basketball and what do you call that other sport? That baseball one. You can do those too if you want. I've done basketball ones. I've done a bunch of football ones. Sign up using promo code TradesHQ. I mean, I don't know what else to say about Underdog. It's the site is the best. Like, I don't like best ball. It's not something I enjoy, and I can't stop myself from drafting best ball teams because the site's that good, to be honest with you.
I think I mean, just listening to you, I was hanging on every word. I think I may have discovered why you don't like just drafting and letting it go, because you're the guy who has to fix your roster after the draft, and it works out perfectly well because you love to trade and you're good at it. You get to know everybody. You're a social guy. You go get the players you want. So there's nothing wrong with it. But I'm thinking that might be why you don't like it, because you're hamstrung. You can't trade. You can't do anything. You can't even set a lineup. You're just done as soon as the draft is over.
You know what he's saying, Shane. You know what he's saying. Underlying is that he's saying that you suck at drafting. Yeah, you suck at drafting.
No, I did not say
That's what he's saying.
He sets himself up for trading, bro.
Yeah, sign up for Underdog using Trades HQ. Even if you play Dynasty. No, I find it's good because drafting even in best ball is one of those things that I hadn't done a lot prior to this year, but I feel like it's helping me even in my Dynasty game. Like anything, I'm one of those guys that's like, I'd probably play in a couple redraft leagues every year if I didn't already play in 10,000 charity redraft leagues every year, just because it helps me look at things differently. So I think playing in all those formats really does help you. And
that's fun, man. Yeah. And Underdog's a great setup for leagues like that, for best ball leagues. If you're into it, those short contests, the small groups of people, the quick drafts. I mean, they have something for everyone. It's a really cool setup.
Yeah, I still want to do some against you, Jeremy. Like we'll do it against each other, and then have our patrons. We're going to do that thing that we said with our patrons. But speaking of drafts, the Scott Fish Bowl's been going on for what has it been now? 5 days,
month and a half.
It seems like it's been forever, but it's only been 5 days? Didn't it start?
It started Monday.
On Monday, and today's Friday. Yeah. I don't know about you two guys. My draft it flows really fast, and then we have two people that when it gets to them, it stops. And one of those people is not on Twitter and does not have an email address. So we all just have to sit and wait whenever it gets to that person.
How did they? I don't even know how they joined the league.
I mean, look, he slows it down for 4 or 5 hours and then he drafts. But yeah, even next to his name it says no Twitter account. So he's the only one that's not in our group.
In my draft, some guy named Dynasty, calling himself Dynasty Madman. He takes like an hour on average. I don't know what this guy's problem is, but he did take Henry Ruggs at the 12-10. Than Jalen Waddle. So we're not even out of the 12th round yet.
We're not even in the but it's so funny that you say that because I would love to make, listen, Jeremy, you know, we've talked about this in the past. When you're on the clock, no matter what the draft is, it'll take you a while to make a pick. Even yesterday,
I don't rush, man.
On your anniversary, you had 2 back-to-back picks in the draft in a rookie draft.
I did pretty well in that one.
Yeah,
I was actually trying to trade on that second pick, and I still drafted in pretty good time. I couldn't get a hold of Dabari because he's like works at night. I don't really know, but he finally got back to me, and as soon as he said that he didn't want to trade move up at all in this draft because nobody was worth it, I just clicked on my player and took Nico Collins. So, but yeah, I didn't really, even on my anniversary though, I did draft. Like I didn't make anyone wait 8 hours, but like these things, most of the people that complain about these drafts, they're like, man, come on, hurry up. Why are we waiting so long? As soon as it's over, they're just trying to get in another draft anyway. I mean, just come on, pace yourself. Like I draft how many rookie drafts you do too, Shane, Mike, every year, all these drafts. I mean, honestly, like, I don't need to rush it. I don't. I think it's fun to just see how it goes, man.
Yeah, we all get all excited to have a draft, and then once the draft's gone like 2 or 3 days, everybody's like, "Oh, come on!" They kind of rush through it. But the cool thing is in my draft, there's one more pick, and a lot of the people in the group said, "Hey, if you're live on the show, do it on the show." So. If we were live, which we're not, but if we are, when I do get up, I'll let you guys help me pick it because at this point, once you get past that halfway point, it's just all crapshoot anyways.
Nah, man,
dude, it gets faster. I don't see why some people it takes them longer. The farther into the draft you get, I get faster. It's like there's less to choose from. There's like that guy, definitely that guy.
So, Shane, did we have any news? Because I said at the opening we had a little bit of news, but I just looked at the show sheet and there's no news.
I mean, Mark Ingram could be the odd man out per ESPN.
Is that news?
Barbershop.
Probably not, because we said that like weeks ago on our show.
Yeah.
we just made it up, and
I've just been assuming he's going to get cut. Like the fact that she even brought it up. I'm like, I didn't read the story. I just read the blurb. I don't know if she cited us.
She better be citing her sources, Sarah
How
Barbershop.
awesome would that be? ESPN,
I hope she does, because I was looking into getting verified on the Twitters. And apparently, if one of the things that helps is being cited by a reputable news source.
Did you fill that form out to get verified?
No. I did look at it, but apparently, like me on a personal level, I don't have enough followers, or I don't have enough mentions.
Right, but you have to qualify for all those different things.
Every criterion.
Yeah.
There's different criteria. No. But for that one, I did. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I looked at it.
We all know who you are, so that's all right.
But then there was stuff where you had to actually like do things where it's like, oh, link this and link that, and I was like, that's a lot of work. I'm not going to do that. So
yeah, if everyone's verified, is anybody really verified?
There you go.
It's commonplace. Come on.
I think today was just Twitter must have verified a bunch of people for the first time in a while.
Yeah. It is pretty funny.
I mean, I don't begrudge anyone that got verified. Good for you. I don't know how you go about it.
I don't know. I don't know what the significance is. It's hypothetical for me, Shane. I wasn't really asking you to tell me. I'm just saying it doesn't really mean anything to me. Yeah, rhetorical. There you go. So you know what that is, but you didn't know I was being rhetorical, though you know the definition. Anyways, I don't care like if you're verified or not.
Jeremy, but you said it right though. When in the middle of this conversation, when you said, if we're all verified, is anybody really verified? You know,
but we're not. I mean, there's billions of people on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
I'm guessing billions. Kabillions.
They're
I just don't know what it means when Twitter verifies. It's a meaningless check mark, right?
The best.
But it's blue. It's pretty.
Let's cut that whole Twitter conversation out. We sound like angry old men.
I just have nothing good to say about it. I don't understand it.
It's all good.
That's a whole other topic.
So, all right. So then listen, if there is no news, then
Mark Ingram might get cut. So let me ask you this, because I don't know if we've got into this.
What?
This is big, man.
Look at Jeremy. Jeremy just lifted his head back. He's looking at the sky. What's
David
so
Johnson
important?
Or Philip Lindsay? Winner take all. Who do you got?
Yes.
I was going to say, is that interesting? Is that I don't know that's interesting.
No. All right, never mind then.
But Shane, go ahead. Who do you got?
Yeah,
just
who do
say
you
that,
got?
then we can move on.
I'll say neither.
Yeah, I'm actually going with David Johnson just because he's a better pass catcher, and the ceiling for both those guys is pretty limited. So if it is, I want the guy that's going to catch passes.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
same
so
here.
does that mean you're going to do anything about it? Like would you try to trade?
No. I'm not going to physically do anything about it. Now, if someone has David Johnson on their team, I might look at it and go, oh, can I get him as a throw-in? You know what I mean? Or, I don't know, say someone broke into my house and had a gun to my head and they were like, you need to draft one of these guys. And I'd be like, all right, I'm drafting David Johnson. But outside of those two very specific scenarios, I don't think I care.
Wait, someone broke into your house and held a gun to your head? What?
And made him draft somebody. That would be so amazing. Can you imagine that as a movie?
People do weird, kinky things. People get off on weird things.
Oh my God, here we go. Shane going down a rabbit hole.
I'm just saying, there could be some guy that gets off on watching another guy draft, or gal or guy that gets off a guy or gal drafting.
That goes back to your tweet this afternoon about a subtweet. I wasn't sure what you were asking, but Jeremy, that house we had 2 years in Canton could have with the door left wide open. But listen, so
we still don't have a reason for that. Who left the door open? Just own up to it.
Well, we know it was Shane, but so listen, if that's shit. Let's go to the tweet that Shane sent out today, not the subtweet, but the other tweet that he sent out that we did get a lot of reaction to. And
just in case no one saw that, they need to know that it literally said this is a subtweet. Like, it wasn't tweeted at anyone. I just, one of our friends texted me and she's like, who are you tweeting about? And I was like, no one. I just like throwing grenades into the crowd once in a while just to see what happens.
And for me, I took it a different way. But all right, but the tweet that we are talking about is Shane sent out a tweet this afternoon, and he said, "What is the most replaceable position in fantasy football?" And we seem to get a lot of response to it. I see Shane just said something, but he's muted. So, but you thought that it would be.
Well, I didn't think the audience needed to hear me to tell my kids to be quiet.
Well, but usually when you're yelling at your kids, your head's turned. You were looking right into the camera when you were talking. So I thought you were saying something to us. So, but you did get a lot of response to it, and that set up the idea that we would talk about that on the show today. So, what made you send out that tweet? Like, how did you come up with this idea of what's the most replaceable position?
We don't want to go down that path.
Why not?
I have no less than 18,000 different thoughts that run through my head during a daily, just a daily basis. Some of them get tweeted out. Some of them don't. This one I thought was interesting because I thought it would just, and I probably should have made it a poll, but I wanted the why is what I really wanted.
Yeah, that's good how you did behind it.
Which, a few people did that, not many, unfortunately. But just anecdotally, it feels like wide receiver was the most significant or the biggest answer besides kicker and defense. But I don't count those as positions because we don't use them in dynasty leagues. So those don't count to me. But I understand, some people play in redraft, so I'm sure those are streamable, replaceable positions.
Right. So, but that was the response that a lot of people said. My first thought, I was going to make a joke at the time, and I was going to say some of the fantasy owners that we have to deal with. But then I did see a couple people did respond to you.
A couple people definitely did put GM, which
and that was going to be my response.
Every year, there's at least one or two orphans in every league, and it always gets filled. So they're not completely wrong. It's just I meant more of the actual. NFL type players.
Well, I mean, and it is true, with kickers, that's an obvious answer, but it does definitely seem to be wide receivers more so than it's been in the past. We've seen when we talk on the show about, especially in Superflex, it's hard to get quarterbacks. There's only a handful of running backs that are any good. There's only a handful of tight ends that are any good. So it seems like wide receivers, there's a ton of them. But Jeremy, what would your answer be to his tweet that he sent out?
Well, I think everyone knows there's a great amount of depth with wide receivers, and it's easy to come up with like 6 guys, out of a startup and compete right away. Drafting some of them late because there's so much depth, and the passing game is so heavy nowadays. But and I support that. I see why people say that, and the other answer too that you gave. There's only so many top shelf running backs and so many top shelf tight ends, and so I could say. An argument could be made for tight ends. Like you could say tight ends because outside of the top few great tight ends, who gives a shit? They're replaceable. I can start Ferkser this week, and then next week I can start whoever's playing for Dallas. And so in a way, if you don't have one of the great tight ends, then the rest of them are pretty replaceable. Like I don't even have to draft one necessarily because I need one. I could wait or get one thrown in a trade. So I think if you look at it that way, in most scoring, even in tight end premium, a lot of times, depending on how much the premium is, I'd still say tight end is a really replaceable position. Now that's outside of the top few guys that are not replaceable. You can liken them to the top running backs or top wide receivers because of how much they score. But yeah, it's easier to get a good wide receiver than other positions. Even at the cost, but I think tight end is the most easily guy on my rosters.
It's interesting that you went tight end because I shared a little sheet with you guys, and I didn't even bother to put tight ends on there. I was like,
yeah, dude. Right. Isn't it like a straight line? Like you got the guys that score a bunch of points. I haven't looked at it, and then all of a sudden it's just like dudes all scoring like 8 points.
Yeah, but you know what?
Straight line down and then a bunch of turds.
You know what's interesting about that? The way you said that, it made me think about what we've talked about forever on this show. We talk about it all the time that by week 13, 14, 12, 11, whatever, we're starting third and fourth string running backs. So maybe running backs there could be a case for them being the most replaceable because you get those studs at the beginning of the season, you draft them, you're so happy to have them. But by the time they're all injured, you're starting a
the most often replaced position.
Yeah, maybe that.
most often replace our running backs.
There you go, most often. And
have
but then that way, if they're the most often, then maybe they're the easiest to replace, because if you lose your wide receivers and then you're grabbing a third, fourth string wide receiver off the waiver wire, maybe that guy's never going to get a chance to step up, but a third or fourth string running back is going to get a chance to play at some point in the year. So I guess there could be an argument for running backs as well. But Shane, what was this chart that you made? Because now that you mentioned it, none of us pulled it up before the show, and we're pulling it up now. So
we do definitely. Well, not all, because I've actually been working on it. So clearly, I pulled it up because I was looking at it.
So Jeremy
and putting numbers on it.
I just pulled it up. It's actually pretty good. Man.
I just pulled it up too.
It's no big deal. It's not like I had to download a bunch of data and then come up with scoring ranges and then, find out from our patrons. Again, I went to the crew and I said, hey guys, what do you think a significant break in scoring is?
Okay. Right? All right. So wait, stop 1 second. So for people that are listening and you hear him say this, Jeremy, he just mentioned the chart live while we were recording, correct? He never brought it up in the pre-show. He never brought it up. He never said, hey, guys, I did this chart.
I shared it with you. I shared it
just
with you.
Opened it now.
I shared it with you several hours ago. Shared it via the Gmails.
Mike, you have to understand, when you live and breathe advanced analytics like Shane does, you're not going to remember to tell everybody all the super wonderful mind storms he has. Like, he can't keep track of all that.
I did share it with you. I guess next time I can send you a fax and hey, Michael,
but
please check your Gmail, sir.
You know what you could do? You could also share it with us, say, hey guys, this is a chart I worked out for tonight's show. We should do this. All it does is say, Shane shared a Google Doc with you. That's all it says.
Well, what do you think I'm sharing it with you for? What do you think? It's like dick pics? Here's a bunch of Shane dick pics. Not again.
According to the Midwest Expo DM chat, what'd you say? You have 7,043 dick pics or something like that?
Yeah, that I've sent out to 7,046 gentlemen on Twitter.
All right, so tell us about this chart now that we kind of got sidetracked.
So no, I like how you guys were going with the narrative. But I'll just go with this way. So I just wanted to look at let me look at scoring, right? So I asked our patron crew, I said, what's a significant difference in scoring? So quarterback, for example, quarterback A scores 25 points. What's a significant drop from that for the next guy? What would you feel significant? And they said 3 points. 3 points. So 3 points is the range I went with. I just basically, I started off at QB 1, running back 1, wide receiver 1, and then just every drop off after 3 points was a new tier break as far as scoring. And I didn't do any qualifiers like games played or anything like that, because I actually think for replaceability, games played almost doesn't matter, because that actually speaks to the point of replaceability is a guy might play 1, 2, 3, 4 games, whatever. Anyway, so I just looked at a number of ranges. So for example, the first tier was quarterback 1 through quarterback 4. They scored 25.32 points to 27.73 points a game last year. And there was 4 of those guys.
Wow.
Just as an example. And then when you go over to, let's say, this is where the really big tier is. I have a 4th tier of wide receivers, which encompasses the wide receiver 16 through the wide receiver 38.
But even the one above it is a big tier too. It looks like you have a wide receiver. For people who can't see it, you have wide receiver 1 is one tier. You have wide receiver 2 to 3 is another tier. Then you have wide receiver 4 to wide receiver 15. And then you have wide receiver 16 to 38. I mean, why is it that it's a 1 and then a 2 and a 3 and then there's that big drop?
I don't know. You made the chart. Basically, I don't. Yeah, if I made one of those scatter charts, it'd probably look better. But that's just how many people are in that tier. So there was 12 wide receivers that scored in between 15.9 and 18.8 points of last year, which would have been encompassed. It would have been the wide receiver 4 through 15.
Okay.
But there was 23 receivers that scored between 12.5 points and 15.5 points. And then if you really wanted to get crazy, and just throw in, well, how many wide receivers scored from like, say, 10 points to 15.5 points? There was 43 wide receivers. And that's not like how many individual games were in there. Just that's how many averaged it, over the year. That's how many wide receivers averaged that scoring. So just looking at the numbers, it looks like wide receivers 16 through 38 is the most replaceable position in fantasy football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most teams lining up, they have 3 and 4 wide. The depth charts are big, not surprised at all. It's that there are so many guys valuable, down to that point. But like, do you care if you have Brandon Ayuk or Robert Woods in the end? Do you care if you have Robbie Anderson or Cooper Kupp? Because honestly, there's not much differentiating a lot of those guys. And your numbers here, points per game like this, you pretty much flesh that out for us right here.
Wide receiver 2s are not that much more valuable from the low end wide receiver 2s. Once you get past wide receiver 15, wide receiver 2s and wide receiver 3s, basically the same guy.
Yeah.
So, when you talk about like you were just saying, I really like this guy as a wide receiver 2, and I like this guy as a wide receiver 3. It's the same guy. It almost doesn't matter. Now, obviously you want to score more points than the next guy. You want the 3 additional points at every position. But it's kind of good to put that in perspective. Like, well, maybe I should just trade 2 low end wide receiver 2s for a wide receiver 1.
Well, and it's funny too, because I think when you look at the analytics, you changed it a couple different ways. Like, you can look at numbers and you could say one thing, and then you can combine the numbers and you could say something else. If you look at the running backs down there, if you go in that same type of scoring range, where with the wide receivers here, you got 43, but with the running backs, you've got 32 that are in similar range for running backs.
Well, so that's a 6-point range, right? It's 8.5 to 14.6. It's 6.1, right?
Well, so your other one is 10 to 15. So it's just a 2
roughly
difference.
the same. Yeah, I guess it's the same scoring range when you look at it,
right?
But it's a little tighter. Like on the wide receiver side, where it's not falling below 10. When you get to 8.5 fantasy points, you're almost unusable. But the only reason I grabbed that tier is because that was a 3-point tier. But yeah, 8.5 to 11.5 points. There are 18 running backs that scored in there, and that'd be the RB. Like, those are RB3, RB4 guys. Those guys are absolutely replaceable too. They're the second most replaceable position.
And it's funny too, because with most of the leagues that we're in, even like with Scott Fish right now, you have like X amount of flex spots to fill. So if some of these leagues that we're in, where we can start 1 of every position and then 6 flex, out of all the rest, that's when you look at these kind of analytical numbers and say, okay, well, yeah, this running back's going to get me 11.9 to 14.6, and this wide receiver is going to get me 10 to 12.4. Then you could just decide whether it's going to be that running back 5 or this wide receiver 5.
Right. And again, this is just a snapshot in the last year. And because I did this, now I'll probably go back and look at the last few years, because that's fun for me for some reason. I don't know, whatever. Like, I don't write.
It is fun, man.
I hate writing about specific players. Like, I find that one of the most boring things in the world to do. Oh, well, this year Juju is really going to kill stuff because blah, blah, blah. I love looking at historical trends and stuff like this. So anyway, I'm probably going to dig back a little further to see if there's any, long-term trends here. But what I found is, when I dig into data like this, is 1 year snapshots are usually not anomalous. Usually, there might be 1 year here and there where it's a bunch of weird things happened, but I shouldn't make any grand pronouncements till I go back and look at a few years. And I was wrong. It's the second most replaceable position is the wide receiver 39 through wide receiver 58, which would be a wide receiver 12, 26. Was that a wide receiver 4? Past that, he doesn't matter.
You know what's funny? You always try to do the math really quick, but you spend all this time on the chart. You should write those wide receiver ranges on your chart so you don't have to think about it.
Exactly, yeah.
Funny. I started to do that, and I didn't. And I was like, I just divide it by 12. So 12 into 58 goes 5 times.
Yeah, see, but if you wrote it down on the chart, you would sound like a genius when you're saying the numbers.
But based looking on this, anything, but even more than that, overall, what this shows me, and again, and it's, I keep coming back to this very simplistic approach to fantasy football. I literally just want the top fucking guys.
Well, sure.
Like all these.
Yeah, you want the best players at every position. Yeah, of course.
But when people are like, oh, well, I made this trade for depth, you lost. You lost that trade. You've automatically lost that trade because most people are probably playing in a start 9 or start 10, right? Not
had
not
this
many
conversation before. Not most.
But yeah, but what I'm saying is like, it's a different conversation once you start getting into start 11, 12, 13. Depth is really, really important. But in any other start 9 or 10 with Superflex, depth does not matter. Like, it's great if you have it because you draft it really well and you trade it really well, but you should be consolidating your assets is basically my overarching point there.
You have to do that.
Yeah, and maybe, Jeremy, it goes back to the joke that you made at the beginning about his drafting ability. But what is interesting is, why did you just blow off the tight end position? Like, why didn't you add the tight end position to this chart at all?
Because there's 1, 2, 3. There's like 3 guys that mattered last year.
Okay, but if there's only 3 guys that matter, you would still have those other tiers, and maybe the replaceability would be something similar to running backs and stuff.
Yeah, it might be, but their tiers are so bad that I don't care. Like,
because tight ends are the most replaceable players in the game. That's
Jeremy,
exactly why you don't care. You'd rather talk about a real argument, which would be the other position.
So there's
I just added them, right? I just added them, but so let's just bring it up.
Damn tight ends. Forget about tight ends. Let's get rid of them. I want everybody to be considered a wide receiver except for running backs. I mean, tight ends with wide receivers, and then only those top guys matter. And you don't have to falsify documents and make tight ends worth more with their points per reception bonuses. Come on.
See, that's a whole other conversation, by the way.
I know.
And again, this is Fantasy Pros. This is just per game scoring. But most of these guys played at least 11 to 16 games. But there's one anomalous guy in here that OJ Howard played 4 games.
You're going to build the chart live on the air is what you're doing.
I already did. So TJ Hawkinson was, and this is, and I got this also off of Fantasy Pros PPR scoring. I should give them credit. So no one thinks that I'm just sitting here like calculating PPR scoring in my head.
I don't think anybody thinks you're able to do that.
I mean, they might think that. Who knows? They might think I'm a savant. Like, Gene might be stupid. But
you have a beautiful mind.
No, exactly. Nobody believes that. But go ahead. Sorry.
Well, it's good to dream. Anyway, so the difference from the tight end 8 last year in points per game, he had 11 points, TJ Hawkinson, to the tight end 23. Tight end 23, Jared Cook with 8.5 points. That's not even a full 3-point difference.
So what's 23 minus 8?
Well, that's got nothing to do with it.
Yes, it does. It does.
15.
All right, so
15.
there's 15 tight ends in that range that you're talking about.
Yes.
So that's why you decided not to put it on the chart.
Well, that, and I don't care about fantasy points a week.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when we're not talking about double digits, my interest wanes really fast.
Yeah, when we're talking about the difference between 8.5 points to 11 points a week, that better not be like that specific position. Better not be the reason that you're winning and losing. When there's that, you know what I mean? Like, they are that useless.
Can I ask you something, Jeremy? You and I enjoy at least playing IDP. But this argument that you're giving right here, Shane, could be an argument of why playing IDP makes fantasy better. Because your argument right here is that there's only 3 positions that even matter: quarterback, running back, and wide receiver. And there's only a handful of people in those positions that even matter. So if you play IDP, then you get all the linebackers, defensive ends, blah, 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 blah. You have a whole bunch of other options to play with. Your premise of this entire thing is that all we should give a shit about is 3 positions. And even with the quarterback thing, it's really only 2 positions: running back and wide receiver. Because you just said tight ends mean nothing.
You should care about all 4 positions. As far as tight end, your plan should be, I got to get one of the top 6 guys, because I think there's going to be an increase in the scoring.
It's a good plan.
if I know about anyone else, I'll just punt.
Okay, so then that's the reason why it could be more interesting and more valuable to people to play IDP. I just want to throw out there because you've been saying that for 3 years.
I get what you're saying.
No. Look, I don't enjoy IDP, and we actually got a couple people that tweeted back at us about IDP. And they said it was defensive tackles, and I didn't engage with them only because I couldn't tell you if that was true or not. Like, I have literally no fucking idea.
You just ignored it.
I think I liked their comment so that they know. Like I was like, oh, I appreciate that. I don't know what to say to it, but yeah.
It just seemed funny to me because we've bantered this about for years, but this conversation and looking at this chart and even the way you just like shit on the tight ends, it really seems to shine a light on there should be more to fantasy football than just wide receivers and running backs.
Well, I think one of the approaches and that I like in leagues is the tiered scoring, where different positions get different types of scoring for different types of production. I enjoy the shit out of those leagues where it goes, all right, well, a tight end gets 0.75 per target. A wide receiver, because that position is going to get so many more targets, gets a 0.25 per target or something like that. You know what I mean?
Anything that makes all the players have a value, within their own position, but relative to the other positions, it does make it more interesting. And it makes, if you're making tight ends more valuable, then they become more interesting. You have to trade for them, draft them, trade for them, draft them in the rookie drafts. You can't ignore any particular position because they all have certain values, like per carry for running backs. Like, whatever you think about that, not really the point, but you're making running backs who, carry the ball, and they're the only position that generally does that, more valuable when you play them, and then relative to other guys. So I support that tiered scoring too. I don't like when every position outside a quarterback kind of gets the same points for it. It does kind of water things down a little bit too much.
It also kind of goes back to commissioners of IDP leagues, because that is exactly what they do, most of them at least, with the IDP positions, is you have this tiered scoring when it comes to different IDP positions, because if you didn't, then nobody would care about DTs like you mentioned, and cornerbacks.
We need more of
that.
We need more of that on the offensive side, where there's different points per. Well, I don't know if we're going to do points per target, but a lot of leagues have it's tiered differently. For tight ends get 1.75, wide receiver gets 1, running back might get 1.5 points per reception, stuff like that. I love tiered scoring like that because it does help me like be more. It makes you be more creative. It gives you more options on how you want to build your team.
It makes trades more interesting, and you don't just stagnate at one position. I think it just juices up the league a little bit. Anything that keeps, and we're in leagues, most of our leagues, right, guys, especially the ones we've started, like in HQ, we don't stop trading. Like you could trade all year round, around the clock. Like it's unlimited, and something like you were saying would make that kind of year round action even more compelling, more interesting to the guys to the owners in the league.
Even with the scoring where I'm like, oh, wide receiver 3 doesn't matter. Well, we don't always know who's going to be a wide receiver 3. We don't always know who's going to be a wide receiver 2. So that's always going to make the game fun. You're always going to go, well, I think Juju can be an elite wide. Well, you're not always going to go, I think Juju can be an elite wide receiver. But you know what I mean? You're going to go, well, I think Chris Godwin can be a wide receiver 1 again. And that's where it's fun too, is making specific bets on specific players. Like that's the part of, I guess, the player part that I really enjoy.
It goes back to also talking about, drafting the guys that you want and the players that you want to watch and stuff like that, because only you can make that decision of what you think is going to happen. And if that player is going to be a wide receiver 2 or 3, it reminded me of something back in the day when we used to play fantasy, without the websites and with the pens and papers and stuff. To make some positions more relevant and all that stuff, we used to have to do like tiered things where, say, you would get a bonus if all of your running backs ran for 200 yards in a week, or if all your wide receivers, if the combination of all the wide receivers you had had over 200 yards, you'd get bonus. Like there was all these tiered bonus type of things based on the amount of yards that your players got and stuff. And for some reason, when everything went digital, those kind of things went away. I don't recall really being in any league that's on like MFL or CBS or anything like that, where they have combination yards with different positions and different players. And I just brought it up because somebody mentioned it the other day from our home league. That was like a big thing, if both your running backs ran for over 200 yards, you got a bonus 8 points or something like that,
We're in at least I'm in the Dynasty hot sauce. What do you call that? What do you call it when you like a show? And then you're in their league.
Listener league.
Listener league. Thank you. I'm in that Dynasty hot sauce listener league. Our buddies Justin and Larry Monkey.
Yes.
Larry Monkey still has my sunglasses, holding them hostage. Anyway, and I'm fairly certain it's his league where it's after a certain number of catches, then the points start to. So like 0 to 3 catches are worth 1 point. But then 3 to 5 catches is worth 1.25 points. And then, you know what I mean? Something like that per position. I believe
reminds me of the old days.
But see,
Larry's an older guy too, man. It reminds me of the old days when we didn't know who won the game for the week, Mike, until Monday.
Yep.
Like because you needed the actual final stats to come out like in the newspaper. And so we went without being able to brag about that week or whatever until, actually Tuesday morning, really. You'd be like sometimes waiting until like then to and then acquisitions were slow, and it was just a different world, man.
It's funny when you think about waiting for the newspaper, because then when USA Today started putting the stats, USA Today was like the greatest. You had to wait for USA Today to come out. But I think what you're also speaking about, Shane, is that for an individual player, or do they add up all your position? So it will add up.
A specific player.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I don't believe that you can do it for the position itself, and I could be wrong, and maybe that is there, but I don't think it is. And that was just one thing that I had thought of when you were talking about trying to make it more interesting for the players that you have. That was one way we used to do it. Yeah, and Jeremy, it is really funny to think about, like, because I've always been the commissioner ever since we started doing it. It's like when that newspaper was out there, when you get up in the morning, you open it up and you start adding everything up with the calculator. It's way different than this instant gratification we have now.
It is all instant gratification. Nobody has patience anymore.
We lose our mind. Like whenever MFL goes down for 13 seconds, every year MFL will go down at some point, and it's usually like 1:30 in the afternoon when like the games have literally just started, right? And people will lose their shit. Oh my God, MFL is down. I don't know what the score is. Like, dude,
go watch the game.
There's 7.5 hours more of football today.
It is.
Then you got another game tomorrow, and probably 2 since they're doing double headers on Monday. Like, relax. If it's 5 o'clock, if it's 6 o'clock at night, right, and MFL goes down, I'll get a little antsy. But if it's 1:30 in the afternoon, just guys, give them a break. Let their programmers get on it. They'll figure out what's going on.
It's amazing too.
Good advice from Shane Manila.
It's amazing too, because obviously forget the COVID year that we just had, but prior to that, with my home league, half the league is always here at my house every Sunday, and every single person has their iPad in their lap, going there with their scores. We have a computer set up in front of the 5 TVs I have on the wall, but everybody's looking at the computer because that's the one that has the stats on it, And it is always funny if you think about it that way. And you're right. If something goes down, we're all sitting right there, but we all go, oh shit, there's no score. Oh, and everybody's hitting refresh, waiting for the scores to update. It's really a different world. That is for sure.
I mean, just on that same vein, since whatever, it's what we want to do. A tantrum. Whatever.
No, not a tantrum.
It's a rantrum. It's a rantrum.
A rant.
A tangent.
I enjoy fantasy football and regular football a lot more now that I don't check my scores.
I know, that's it, man. I was just going to tell you guys, I don't do that until like maybe the playoff, like when we're in the playoffs of our dynasty leagues or whatever. Like, see, I usually I don't have time to stay there that tuned in anyway with stuff that's going on, but I really just like to watch the football game. And, you know, I do see who scored in another game across the ticker, and it's kind of cool. Oh, you know, you see a player you like or someone that you have on a lot of your teams, and it's exciting, but I refuse to like go to my MFL teams and micro watch everything that goes on, because it's like maddening. I have to wait until at least like the Sunday afternoon games are done, and maybe the Sunday night, and see how close you are. And you're like, oh, I have Sundays, late Sunday games and the Monday games, and you know, tune in. But I can't watch it like that, man. It would drive me nuts.
And you know what you just said? I guess speaking it out loud, saying it out loud, it goes back to the IDP thing, because you're right. When you're watching football, you obviously know when your wide receiver scores or your wide receiver gets a big catch or your quarterback throws it. But with IDP, you're not 100% sure if your linebacker got a tackle or if your DE...
Or was he credited with a half an assist instead of a full tackle or whatever?
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe...
Was that a pass breakup, or did the guy just fall down? Like,
maybe that's what's more important when we're sitting there hitting refresh, is the IDP information, because that is true. Now that I think about it, people are like screaming, hey, I didn't get that sack. I should have got that half of a stuff like that. So maybe it is more of an IDP mentality of hitting refresh, or maybe offensive people do it as well. But I think when you just said that, it made me think that, that's more IDP.
Yeah, because a reception for 10 yards and then a touchdown is a lot easier than like some of the minutia on defense that goes on, and trying to sort out what really happened on a play and who got credit for what. I see what you're saying. I didn't think of it like that before.
I didn't either till we were just talking about it. That's the great thing about talking about this stuff.
IDP, if anything, that's the one I would pay least attention to, because that's the most likely stats to get changed at some point.
Well,
you know
sure.
What I mean? Like, all the time they change a sack to a tackle. You know what I mean? Or they'll give someone else credit for half a sack and shit like that. Like, that happens all the time in IDP, I feel like.
Won and lost games, man, many times on silly stuff. Correct stat corrections.
On Thursday.
It's unbelievable, yeah.
Yeah, but even though you know that, during the game, you want to get that credit for that tackle or that sack. You could say, oh yeah, maybe Thursday morning it's going to change, but on Monday night when the whole thing's over and you sit there and you see that you won, that's why you want to see it. But then you sweat it out a couple days if it's really close, whether you're going to get it changed, But I don't know, maybe it's just interesting when we talk about stuff like this, that kind of stuff comes out. We did have a trade on here that we were going to discuss.
Whatever. Trade alert.
Okay, good. Trade alert. So why don't we go? Go ahead, Shane. What's the trade?
We got one trade, and this is in the aforementioned. And by the way, I hate when people use aforementioned in articles. By the way, like don't do that. Like, is that a me thing?
I guess so.
I mean, I've done it before, but yeah, it's kind of a big word you can get around. Like, you don't need to say that word.
There's really no reason to ever use aforementioned.
Yeah. As mentioned previously, or as mentioned before. Like, you don't need to be a smart ass and say aforementioned.
Yeah. And also, I've mentioned this before. Stop using former and latter, and then telling me in the next sentence which one you like better, because I don't know the difference, and it just confuses me. And please stop doing that. That's
a me thing.
Yeah,
that's a me thing. Okay, please stop doing that to me.
That's another reason I don't read too much. I listen. So go ahead. So what is this trade?
Oh, and this was in the aforementioned hot sauce dynasty hot sauce league. Myself and Sweaty Beaver made a trade. I gave up AJ Brown, and he gave me Christopher Godwin and a round 2022 draft pick. Now this is a start 10. I'm going to say it's a start 10.
Jeremy, what's your first thought? Like, what is the first thing that pops into your mind when you see that Shane traded away AJ Brown?
Well, I first see that Shane traded with a Sweaty Beaver.
Starting 11. Starting 11, by the way. Starts 11.
Well, when I see that Shane traded away AJ Brown,
yes,
I'm like, this dude is so fickle. Like
Yes.
that used to be his favorite player for a while in the world. After DJ Moore, then next it was AJ Brown, and like, I got to get me some AJ Brown. I'm going to get him on every team. He probably traded for AJ Brown last season or the off season, and now he's trading him away to get Chris Godwin in the second. And I'm thinking, either side is fine. Depends on what you think you're going to do with that second. And in this case, I don't know. I mean, I think I hang on to AJ Brown. I don't think Tennessee is going to sling the rock like people do when they draft AJ Brown as the first overall wide receiver. And I have seen that. I don't think they're going to sling the rock enough to make that a reality, but I still like AJ Brown just a little bit more than Chris Godwin. This is one of those trades where like, yeah, Sweaty Beaver got a good deal. Hey, Shane got a good deal from Sweaty Beaver.
Yeah. I agree with you. Look, especially since I watch all those Tampa Bay games and you've got Tom Brady there, which he is throwing it around to everybody like he always does on whatever team he's playing for.
To everybody.
Yeah. To
Awesome. That's cool.
So I can see one way or the other going with either one of the two guys, AJ Brown or Chris Godwin. My first thought is you said exactly what my first thought was that how many times did Shane say how much he loves AJ Brown, but
he traded for him so much,
but also getting that second round pick, I can see where that is something that would excite Shane. Plus he can try to do something else with that second round pick move it around.
More money.
Because this is only this is the first week of July. That second round pick will not be on his roster by the 2022 draft next year. So
it will not. And Chris Godwin probably won't be either. Let's be real.
Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin's only 25 years old.
Yes.
Was pretty much the wide receiver one entering last year. Or the wide receiver, he was up there with Michael Thomas, and one injury-plagued season where he still led the team in target share, and people are like, I never really liked Chris Godwin that much.
See, and I wasn't shitting on him because I was just saying that I watch the games, I watch that team, and I see the way Tom Brady plays and all that stuff. And Chris Godwin's going to be great, but also who knows what AJ Brown's going to do? So if you like
AJ
one,
Brown is great. There's no doubt about it. Yeah.
So all right, so then if you believe that, then why did you do the trade?
I believed it. I'm tired. I believe.
I mean, and with the replaceability of wide receivers, who really gives a shit, right? I mean, I'm just messing.
Here's the thing. I mean, and that ends up being a lot of my moves is in larger leagues like this. This is probably a pretty big tier down from AJ Brown because he is the wide receiver 2, I guess, is he in EDP right now for whatever that's worth. Then Godwin's down at like 7 or 9. So I guess that's a pretty big tier. Maybe I should have gotten more than the second. So I should have asked for an additional second or something. But yeah.
But I like where you're going because you did get Godwin and the second when you made the move. You didn't just do a straight up because I believe Godwin's better. So I'm just going to trade him straight up because, there are people out there playing this game that just they want their players so badly that they're willing to trade. Give value away, and you can't. You're building a dynasty team. You have to gain the edge as much as possible, marginally in your favor. And I mean, that's definitely what you did with the value side of this.
Yeah, the only time trading positions straight up to me makes sense is when you're either going a lot younger or a lot more production. Okay, well, I'll take, I'll give you Julio Jones and you give me, I don't even know what his equivalent is at this point.
But there is still one other point to that, though. Production or, like you said, age or likability. Like, if that was your guy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that can work out, right? Because if you're like, here's a guy who wants my Joe Mixon,
right,
who I don't want, and that same player, the former player that I mentioned, Shane, has Nick Chubb. Perfect trade partners.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm talking like before, last season or something.
Right.
Yeah. I'll absolutely give you Joe Mixon. You send me Nick Chubb. I'm happy. And actually I'm a lot more relaxed because I'm like, thank God I got a real running back again. When I got Nick Chubb. Anyways, that's my bias. But honestly, it can still work in your favor doing that sort of tit for tat, like Mike said, when you're getting when the likability is part of the reason or the reason you made the trade. It can still work out just fine.
Yeah, because that's definitely something that I've done in the past because I enjoy watching the players that I want to watch. It's funny because we mentioned, go full circle to the beginning of the show, we mentioned about Scott Fish. This year in the Scott Fish Bowl, my drafting, I have drafted players, I think like more than half of the players I've drafted, I've never had on a team before. It's just the way it's been falling out for me. It gets to the point where by the time it gets to my pick, there's all these guys that, oh, well, I'll go with this guy. And I kind of made the idea in this Scott Fish, to say, hey, let's just do whatever comes to me. And I've got all these players that I've never watched before. I've never had on a team before. And it might be interesting going into the season.
You might have a good roster, man. I do it that way too. In best ball, I try not to be biased and take the players that I like. Whereas in Dynasty, a Dynasty startup, I definitely tend to go, and you guys are probably much the same. I go for the players that I like more,
absolutely,
or the most, and players that I think are going to peak a little, maybe not this year, but hopefully I'm ahead of the curve and I'm getting a guy a player that's going to be better next year than this year, and kind of be, sneak my guy in that way. But in best ball and redraft, I'm just trying to get the best player I can every pick.
Yeah.
It's a little different.
Well, say that again.
He said word.
He said word right as I was saying something. But so we're going to wrap this up right here. But I just want to ask both of you guys. I know pre-show we mentioned about Scott Fish, and Shane was like, everybody talks about Scott Fish. But regardless of whether everybody talks about it or not, we have listeners that really care about us and you guys and stuff, and people may want to know. So has there been anything in this Scott Fish with your drafts that you did differently than you thought, or anything that you're happy about, or are you even close to being done? Because I know my division, we just hit the halfway point just now.
Yeah, we're in the 11th round. We have a couple of English blokes and one Irish bloke, including Big E. Yeah, so he's in there from across the drink, as they like to say. We've got an English bloke in there. We might have someone, I believe, from Finland, or I'm just stealing that from someone else's podcast. I forget. Either way, yeah, we're 11 rounds in. I'm fine with my team. I wanted to go more tight end heavy than I did. I have Darren Waller, TJ Hawkinson, and Robert Tonyan. Somehow I wanted another tight end. I wish I could have put off one more tight end like Mark Andrews, or I don't know how I could have pulled George Kittle into this, but somehow George Kittle. If I could have somehow gotten George Kittle in this mix, it would have been all types of sexy, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah. For me with tight ends,